With college football 26 coming out in just over a couple of months, it's time to talk about the cover for EA Sports College Football 27. Now, I think I have a pretty good idea of who's going to be on the cover, or maybe multiple people who are going to be on the cover if EA goes the same way they have in the last 2 years, and I wanted to talk about that in this video because as of right now, we don't really have a lot else to talk about as it pertains to College 27, although we're going to be getting a lot of news on that very soon, so make sure to subscribe and turn the bell icon on if you don't want to miss any of that news when it drops. We've already heard a few things about the game. We've gotten a few rumors, a few leaks, which I've talked about in previous videos, but as of right now, we're still kind of waiting on some more new information. So in the meantime, let's talk about the cover athlete. Now, also keep in mind, tomorrow is the NFL draft. Last year on draft day, they did drop a little bit of a teaser for both Madden and college football, so there is a chance we could maybe get a little bit of something tomorrow from EA. That's at least what I'm hoping. Now, when it comes to the cover athlete, with the last two iterations of the game, they have always been active players. Now, on the deluxe edition last year, they did put some like Hall of Fame type players from college football like Tim Tebow and Reggie Bush on there, but the main cover is going to be active players as it has been for the past 2 years. I do believe we're going to get two covers like always, and I have a few ideas about who we can expect to actually be on these covers. Now, I want to get this out of the way before we get into the guys that are likely to be on the cover. Trinidad Chambers of Ole Miss is not going to be on the cover. He was said to be one of the finalists, and honestly, he would have probably been on the cover in some capacity, whether it be just by himself or with multiple other players. But when he had the deal going on recently where he was kind of in court with the NCAA so that he could get that eligibility, all of that lingering kind of threw him out of the running to be on the cover, because I think they had to have the cover decided well in advance and had to get things together for that. So because his status was still technically up in the air, they couldn't really go through with making him a cover finalist due to not really knowing how that was going to play out. But it was reported that he actually was going to be one of the finalists and likely would have been on a cover in some capacity had his eligibility been confirmed sooner than it wound up being confirmed. Now, one of the honorable mentions I want to throw out there is Bryce Underwood. He was on the deluxe cover last year. I don't really think he'll have an entire cover to himself this year. I do think there's a chance he would get on the deluxe cover yet again because he is such a big name, but he didn't really go too crazy as a freshman, so I don't think he's going to have a solo cover to himself. And even though Jeremiah Smith is still the overall probably best player in football, he got on the cover last year, so I don't think they're going to put him back on the standard cover yet again this year, although again, he could be a person that makes it onto the deluxe. So let's start out with Arch Manning. Now, I'm going to be honest, I am not very confident about Arch Manning. I do think he would be their #1 candidate. And listen, I know last year he didn't have the best season, but he did pick it up in the second half. He played a lot better in the second half than he did in the first half. But regardless of how you feel about him, he is the biggest name in college football. Him and Jeremiah Smith. Those are the two guys, but Jeremiah Smith was on it last year. So Arch would probably be their #1 candidate. The thing with Arch is I don't know that he would do the cover because he would probably want a bunch of money. I mean, if you remember when the game came back last year, initially he wasn't even supposed to be in the game, period, because of this, but at the last minute he wound up signing on, and he may have gotten more money than everybody else did to be in the game, although I'm not 100% sure. But the reason I think he would maybe not be on the cover is just because I do think it would not be as simple as just presenting him with the idea for the cover and having him go along with it. He'd probably want a lot more money than they were offering the other athletes who would be on the cover, and maybe it's just something he wouldn't want to do altogether. So I think he would be their first choice. I'm just not as confident that he'll actually be the guy to grace the cover. Moving on to the next candidate, Kwan Lacey of Ole Miss. He's probably going to be the highest rated running back in the game, and we didn't see a running back on the cover last year. However, in 25, we did see Donovan Edwards be one of the cover athletes. So we have seen EA kind of use running backs a lot more lately. The last two Madden covers were running backs after not seeing that position on the cover for a long time. So it does seem like they're kind of coming around more to putting running backs on the covers. I do think he's one of the guys that could be on the cover. I don't think he would get a solo cover just by himself. If they're just doing one person on the cover, I don't believe it would be Lacey. But if they're doing another cover with 2 or 3 people on the main edition, I do think he has a very good chance to be one of those players that would be on the cover. Now, of course, if they're going to do a deluxe like they did with the last 2 years where they put multiple players on the cover and also mascots and coaches, I definitely think, if nothing else, he's going to be on one of those covers for sure. And real quick, I did want to mention that we have officially partnered with Civil.gg. If you're looking to win more games in both Madden 26 or College Football 26, you need to check out our website, Civil.gg. We have full offensive and defensive guides that'll actually help you win more games, and weekly new content that's built for players of all game modes at all skill levels. You'll be joining over 2,000 active members. 98% of them say they've won more games since joining. This guy that is likely to be on the cover is Malachi Toney, the wide receiver from Miami. Now, he was a freshman last year and had quite a season, and we saw the year before last when Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams had really great freshman seasons for a wide receiver. They both landed on the cover last year, and Malachi Toney was also in the national championship game with Miami, so there were a lot of eyes on him. He definitely is one of the more hyped up players going into his second season, so I do think even if there was just one player on the cover or multiple, I think Malachi Toney actually has a very good shot to be on there. Plus, he plays for Miami, which is just one of the bigger college brands. I think having a Miami play on the cover would look pretty cool, and I do think that's something EA is definitely going to be looking into. I mean, the cover at this point has to already be done, so I think that Malachi Toney is definitely one of the guys they would have brought around to be on one of these covers. It just kind of makes too much sense to me. Now we're going to move on to a couple of heavy hitters here. Julian Sang, the quarterback from Ohio State. Now, he was one of the better quarterbacks in NCAA last year. Ohio State fell a little short in the playoff. They didn't get back to the national championship, but I do think this is one of those guys, again, if it's even a single person on the cover or multiple, I think he's got a really good chance. Honestly, if I was picking, if they were going to do a 3-player cover, I would probably go with Malachi Toney, Kawan Lacey, and then either one of Julian Sang or the next quarterback I'm going to pick. Again, unless Arch actually does wind up being on the cover, then I think he can kind of hold the cover down by himself because he just has such a big name. But Julian Sang is definitely one of those guys that has to be in the running for this cover, just being the player that he is at the most important position in football. He's definitely a guy that they would have to be looking into for putting on the cover this year. Now, to me, the absolute favorite to be on the cover regardless is going to be Dante Moore, the quarterback of Oregon. He could have went into the draft this year. He would have probably been a top 10 draft pick this year. I'm almost positive. He's going to go in next year and probably be the #1 quarterback selected unless things shake out differently during the college season, because that can always happen. He could have a bad year, or Arch could just absolutely tear it up and then instantly become the #1 guy. But as of right now, I would think going into next year, Dante Moore is probably the #1 QB prospect as it stands today. He'll probably be the highest rated quarterback in the college game when it drops. Now, again, they're going to do title updates and things like that, so of course that could change. But Dante Moore, I think, playing for Oregon, which is one of the bigger brands, they have, one of the best looks in college football. He is going to be the highest rated QB likely in the game. I think he is my favorite pick to be on the cover, again, whether it's a solo cover or a cover with multiple athletes. Now, if they go multiple athletes, I think if you want to go dual quarterback cover, you could go Dante Moore and Julian Sang, which would be pretty cool. They both play in the same conference, kind of be similar to what they did last year with Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith, putting the top 2 quarterbacks on the cover. I'm not really sure if Julian Sang is going to be rated higher than Arch. I would think that he's going to be, just because of how last year shaked out, but I guess you never really know. But if Arch is not involved, then I'm just assuming he's not going to be, because again, I just think he would want a lot of money to be on the cover, which I don't doubt him. When your name is as big as his is, cash in. So I'm just assuming that he's not going to be on it. I think Dante Moore and Julian Sang would be a good 1-2 punch cover, or if you want to do multiple positions, you would pick one of those QBs, Kawan Lacey and Malachi Toney. I think that is a great 1-2-3 if you're going to go that route. Now, as it pertains to the deluxe cover, I do think this year we could see them change this up. If they stick to what they did the last 2 years, they're just going to put a ton of players on it, coaches, mascots, which is a good look. It's going to work every time, but I think this year you've got the chance to maybe do something different. You could give the Indiana head coach his own cover, because right now he is like the biggest coaching name in college football with the turnaround that he did at Indiana over those last 2 years and then winning the national championship last year. I think that you could give him his own cover and that would be cool. Also, we've pretty much know that it's all but confirmed that mascot mode is returning because of several leaks that happened last year. So if mascot mode is returning, you could do an all mascot deluxe cover as well, which I think would be pretty cool. Or you could kind of just stick to the status quo and just kind of mix and match. Do mascots, do coaches, do some of the players, and kind of run it like that. But that's pretty much how I see the cover shaking out. I don't think there's going to be any other players other than the ones I mentioned here, although there always could be another guy or two that could sneak in there. I mean, Lenore Sellers probably still has a chance to get involved there. but I do think the names I mentioned are kind of the top of the top here, and I would be surprised if we didn't see multiple of these guys on the cover when it's revealed, hopefully in the next 3 weeks to a month. Now, if you want to know everything we do know so far about College Football 27, make sure you check out this video right here on the screen.